Hey, Global Village. Okay, this is normally outside my wheelhouse, but it annoys me so much that I feel I've just got to have a quick rant about it. And that is that precious metals market, specifically silver, uh, has gone into free fall over the last few days. And up until that point, it had been increasing value uh, constantly, uh, primarily off the back that it appears countries like China, who is one of the main producers of silver, is not allowing its domestic silver to be sold in the international market. It's just keeping it or hoarding it. Uh, and so generally it appears that due to the confusion and doubt and skepticism about the current financial markets, people are turning to real assets such as gold and silver. Now, apparently, the amount of silver that people own, i.e., they've got a piece of paper saying, I own silver, vastly exceeds the actual physical amount of silver that there is in reality. So there's obviously some real shenanigans going on there. But what happened is that when the silver just suddenly plummeted precipitously, very suspiciously at the same time, some of the major precious metal exchanges, I think like two of the largest in the world, suspiciously went offline. So no one was able to offload their stock. And so they just had to watch as their portfolios just plummeted in value as silver just went down and down and down. Now that's not the only bad news about this story, because what also happened is that it appears that JP Morgan shorted the silver, and basically what that means is they borrow silver stock that they don't own, and then they sell that stock while it's at a very high level, at what they would assume to be higher value than it's actually worth. And then what they do is they wait for what they think will be the market correction, which in this case was just this massive drop. And then they buy it back at a much lower value, meaning that they get to pocket the difference between what they sold it at and then what they bought it back at. Because remember, they just borrowed the stock, and then they return the stock back to the brokerage, which means it goes back to the original owners. So that's kind of basically what happens, and that is exactly what JP Morgan did. And you can see in this little diagram here how silver just plummeted, and then right down here it's almost seems to be when it hit rock bottom. Wouldn't you know it, JP Morgan just went and bought it all back, everything that they'd sold, so that they can then, I assume, return the now extremely much lower value silver stock back to the brokerage. And I guess ultimately that represents just everyday buyers, people who are purchasing silver because they thought it was a real safe bet. But it turns out, I mean, the other little twist in the tail here is that if you do have the physical silver rather than just a receipt, a piece of paper saying you own silver, apparently the value of that has not suffered in the way it has if you just owned a piece of paper saying you own the silver, because apparently there are plenty of places you can sell physical silver at a much higher value than what's happened here. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because at the end of the day, what this clearly demonstrates is that, like JP Morgan have made an absolute killing here. They've probably made many, many millions, if not close to $1 billion or more, by doing these shenanigans. And I think there is every reason to suspect that they manipulated the market, and that this precipitous drop in the value of silver was in effect an engineered freefall, which then allowed them to cash in. So the big guy wins, and all the little players, I guess people listening to so-called YouTube financial advisors who's telling everyone to go and buy silver, well, they've just lost a large amount of their wealth. Same old story, isn't it? Anyway, bendy out.